Wow.
Yeah, I'll do the first couple that are just introduction and then you.
Go to 10.
All right. The hosting workshop is now going to begin. This is just going to be a very basic overview of, I guess, after you've already built out your web applications and you've created a GitHub repo, we'll be teaching you how to use Vercel to actually deploy your app to the web so that, it doesn't exist just on your local machine. Other people, judges during the hackathon, or maybe it's for like a personal website or something that you're interested in, other people will be able to access your personal project using a unique domain. And then we'll be going through demos after all the teaching has been done, just to give you guys an idea of how like the hosting workflow is supposed to go. So we're going to start with a workshop right now. My name is Vincent.
I'm Jolie.
Yeah. All right. So very just like a basic agenda. Today we're going over like the basics of hosting. At the end of the demo, you guys should be able to set to like host and deploy your web applications so that other people can access your projects using your unique URLs. Basic agenda. This is a QR code that you guys can scan. It'll just take you directly to this slideshow. That's just in case like we have a couple links to our GitHub repos at the end for the demos. If you guys want to access those and follow along with the demos, you guys can scan this QR code and have it pulled up on your laptops as well. We'll be talking about what is hosting, the basics of it, some key concepts that you guys have to understand, like different hosting types for you guys to understand what are the advantages and disadvantages, what types of hosting do you guys want to do. Finally, the introduction to Vercel, the platform that we'll be using to host our web applications on, and then specifically its use in hackathons and how easy it makes for you guys. And then finally, at the end, we'll be going over 2 separate hosting demos that could prepare you guys to sort of understand what the workflow is for hosting. All right. So who are we? We gave ourselves a very basic introduction at the beginning, but I'm Vincent.
And I'm Jolie. We are both graduating in 2025 as computer science majors at UT Austin. We're both from the engineering team from Texas Product Engineering Organization. Vincent is one of the leads and therefore an instructor for our current 10-week full stack development class, currently at its 4th week, and I am an engineering fellow that actually dives into the projects.
Yeah, very short plug. I know like every workshop is being hosted by an organization from UT Austin. We're just TPEO. That stands for Texas Product Engineering Organization. We take in new fellows at the beginning of every semester, focusing on freshmen and sophomores. And for engineers specifically, we teach them the full aspects of full stack development, beginning with front end, back end. But we also have the product design and product management course as well that we recruit fellows for. And yeah, our curriculum is open door, so you guys could join into our Slack and ask about it and join, work through our homeworks with us as well. We're currently on our 4th week, as Roly said. But yeah, very short plug about who we are. All right, now let's start getting into the meat of it.
So about hosting web applications. So what is hosting and why does it matter? So the hosting is the process.
Distracting, no worries.
So hosting is the process of storing and then serving the files of web applications from a server so that they are accessible to the internet. So when you think about a web page, it actually consists of a bunch of files. And the most basic sense, it usually comes with different texts, different styling, different moving components. All of these are stored in filed forms that would be supplied or served to you from a remote server through your browser so that you can interact with it. So by hosting a website, we give it visibility so that you can actually use that link to access it no matter where you are. You can get performance because those servers can give you more computing power than your personal laptop can, for example, and reliability because you can trust companies like Vercel to be providing more reliable hosting or so to say uptime of services than perhaps your own device. So yeah, so hosting is deployment, which is the penultimate cyan-colored steps on the development cycle. So this is one of those steps that really helps you in a hackathon that makes a project tangible and feel like it has matured towards the end of the hackathon. So To fully host a full stack application, you typically need to host a front end. So as I mentioned at the very beginning, the front ends oftentimes consist of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files that become what the user sees and interacts with. There is very often, optionally, of course, a backend server that helps you process more complicated operations. So for example, if you're building a website that requires you to be able to manage user logins and all that, that is going to be managed by a separate backend that the user cannot directly interface with because you don't want the user to have access to the password of every other user, for example. For the same reason, we're optionally going to include the ability to host databases so that you can manage additional data, like what the user is trying to put into their, so to say, profile, etc. So that all of these components should be hostable so that they can actually be used by other people.
One more thing I want to add here. So during hackathon and you're hosting your web applications, the reason why front end isn't optional, it could be self-explanatory, but it's like, that's what your judges will see. You know, they're going to need something that they can type a link into and something appears on their phone, their laptop, whatever devices that they're using. You could host just a backend server by itself, but that wouldn't be like a very visible hackathon project that the judges would want to see. And then that's why you're always going to be developing your front end out first, something that's tangible that can be served to browsers to be able to see. And then optionally on top of that is the backend server in case you want your project to have a little bit more depth. If you want to add things like user profiles or linking to a database so that you have persistent storage. We're going to be going over 2 demos. The first demo will be only front end. So you don't have to worry about communicating data between 2 separate servers. And then the second demo will be both a front end and a backend server communicating with each other. The database is optional because I guess it's not within the scope. Only major companies would be able to afford the services to like host database things like Firebase, AWS, Oracle, those things. Your backend server, if you guys develop one, you guys would probably be using one of those databases provided by those large companies.
So about the different types of hosting. So one of those types would be static. Static hosting is most optimized for projects where the content doesn't change a lot. So think of your personal blog. That probably does not change every second. So this is especially useful and can be provided by providers such as GitHub Pages, Netlify, and Vercel. The last one of which will be the basis of our demo today. We're going to have dynamic hosting, which are ideal for applications that require backend calculation, which is what we call server-side processing, which means there's data that has to be grinded out by the server before it gets presented to the user. So providers would include, say, DigitalOcean, AWS, and Heroku app. And there's, of course, additional hosting services specifically for databases, and those may look like MongoDB Atlas or Amazon RDS. So for the scope of today, we'll be mostly looking at static hosting. So this is hopefully an illustration that helps understand where static and dynamic hosting differs. Let me know if y'all have any questions up to this point, by the way.
Static is generally easier to host because you don't have to involve communication between multiple servers. That's why the scope of static hosting is just going to be a lot easier to host, but also limited in general compared to like what you can develop whenever you decide to code a backend server as well. With the backend server, you can, like I said, have persistent storage. You can have things like user profiles, things that you need to talk to a database or a backend server before you serve your front-end files.
Okay, so now let's move on to what's called hosting paradigms. So for hosting front ends and back ends, there are 2 common options or paradigms of how we achieve hosting both of them and ensuring that data can flow through between them. So the first is by hosting the back end and then serving the front end using the back end. What does that mean? That means that we're going to host one big thing that contains both the front end and the back end, and when the user requests something, we go to the front end, we make the function calls within the program to get the data that would have been what the backend returns, put it in there so that it becomes a complete front end, and then we return that entire thing. Or the one that we're going to be actually looking at, because it's easier to manage, would be hosting the front end and the back end separately. So that means that we're going to have static hostings for front ends and then back ends, both using static methods, and then we'll customize them so that the back end comes with APIs or application programming interfaces that the front end can call to fetch the data so that it can populate its pages as the user calls it. So one thing to note, however, is that the second method, while overall easier, is going to involve what's called the cross-origin request sharing, which happens when you try to get data as one website from another website. And of course, we'll be discussing that once we get to the demo section. And just before we get into the actual demonstration, we want to explain a little bit of what Vercel, which is the platform that we're going to do the demo with, is. So Vercel is a cloud platform for static sites and front-end applications, which means they prioritizes deployment performance and developer experience. This means that it supports things like serverless functions, which means you don't ever have to maintain a server. As the demo will show in just a minute, for simple sites that doesn't involve a backend, it really is just a matter of clicking a few buttons and bam, your website is 100% fully accessible on the web. It auto scales, which means that the cloud-based nature of Vercel ensures that you don't have to actually manually configure, say, okay, my server needs to have 8 GPUs and 64 gigabytes of RAM. That Vercel manages that for you. They will bill you accordingly, of course, but yeah. And of course, it is directly integrated with GitHub, which means that as long as you do your project and upload it to GitHub, it can pull from the repo and deploy it for you. So why Vercel for hackathons? First, speed of deployment. As I said, if you give it a GitHub link of your project, you can do it in as few as a few clicks, really. It is also easily iterable when you develop it. If there is an error that prevents it from being properly deployed, Vercel is very good at telling you what has gone wrong so that you can go back to fix it, perhaps in the few minutes before your submission deadline. We all know that's how hackathons work. And it is also well integrated with common frameworks across, so to say, various fields. It supports basic frameworks like React, Next.js, and so many more, which means that it simplifies the whole development process and allows you to focus on actually transforming your ideas into the code.
Okay, so moving on to our two demos. The first one that we have right now is just, like I said, the static site. It's going to be a simple front-end page that's like very bare bones, that just contains like the basics of front-end, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So if you guys want to follow along, if you don't have the slides already, we have a link or a QR code to our GitHub right here. And then there are prerequisites to completing this. So you have to create a GitHub account if you don't already have one, and a Vercel account as well. But after you have those two steps, pretty much you're already set, because Vercel connects to your GitHub and allows you to host websites really, really easily. Okay, so let's see. Let's take a look at the GitHub site. Yeah.
And I'm going to walk around in the process of that. So please raise your hand if you have any trouble registering for Vercel, GitHub, working the repository that is accessible to QR code or anything like that. Vincent, once you're done with that step, can you show the QR code?
Wait, what was that? Go back to the link?
Just show the QR code.
Yeah. Okay, so if anyone who wants to follow along, you created your GitHub account. The first step, if you want to actually like see how it works on your local machine and then hosting it on Vercel as well, your first step would be to fork it first. Instead of cloning this direct repository, you would fork it under your own name. That way, Vercel has direct access to anything under your account. Any repositories that were created by you, Vercel knows how to host. So you would create a fork right here. I can create one as well. I'll be the main branch only. If you guys have any questions at all about the process as well, you guys can feel free to raise your hand. Okay, so it looks like we have a couple forks here, but the next step is before deployment, let's see if it works on your local machine first. So once you forked it under your own account, then that's where you can, not sure if everyone here is familiar with git clone. Raise your hand if you're not familiar with git clone and how to get like something copied on your local device. Okay. Yeah. So it looks like you forked it, so great. So now you can go over here to credits and then copy this. Yeah, and then open up like VS Code or your preferred IDE if you have. You know if the telephone works with you? I would be surprised. Yeah. Actually, you could create an empty project. I'm not sure if this is yeah, then you can open up a terminal. Yeah, and then type in git clone and then paste the space between git and clone.
Is it GIT or
GIT space clone and then paste. And let's see. Nice. All right. So that should be there. Yeah. So you fork it, now go to and then comment that. Then open up like your favorite IDE, VS Code works. And then let's see. You can open up a terminal, but make sure you're in like a zip folder. Yeah. So is it fine if like you clone the project into this folder in your okay. You can type git clone first and then okay. There's a space between git and clone. Oops, yeah, sorry, I mentioned that. You might need to install Git. Have you ever installed Git?
Yeah. Good. Yeah.
Git.
Sorry, I'm just
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I've only looked at it. I was trying to set up a Vercel account, so it didn't happen. So
And then run it and then let me.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the thing you mentioned. Yeah. I just myself.
Yes, you copy the links, then open up your
And it should, do you have a hit?
Mhm.
Yeah.
and then open up a terminal.
Yeah. Automatically.
Now you can type in git clone and then space and then paste the link. Yeah. All right, and now it's done. Now you can actually, so you're not in the folder yet. What you can type is cd, which is for change directory, and then host. Yeah, then press enter. Now you're in it, and then now.
Wait, did you send it from here? Yeah, I've heard copy. Just make those sides. Yeah, it's different automatically.
Index. Oh, it's index. You might install. You run an HTML file again from VS Code?
I don't know which extension it is.
Yeah,
Like it's called live server.
Live server, okay. We can walk through that. You're already like, we're moving to the next step. Yeah. Okay. I guess I'll go over like this step first, and then I'll help anyone who is like not up to speed. So if you forked the GitHub repo, and then you have to make sure that like it says over here, forked from Vincento 8439, that's when you know you're good. And then you can copy this link right here. Then you open up whatever terminal you're in, and then type git clone. Oops, git clone. Paste the link. And then that should basically copy the GitHub files onto your local machine so that you can start working with them. Okay.
Well,
So inside of the GitHub repo, once you forked it, there's going to be a big green button here. Make sure it's under HTTPS. This is the link that you'll be copying and then git cloning with. Yeah, live server. Yeah, no, we want it. Does anyone else need help? Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So you copy the link, right? Now open up the terminal and just make sure you're somewhere where you're okay with the so are you okay with being? So then you can get clone and then paste. Yeah. There.
Also,
Yeah, Vercel is going to be the hosting platform that we use in order to actually host your apps. It's like they make it really easy. So yeah, you just sign up and create an account. So is everyone like at the step where they've cloned it that wants to follow along? Okay, if you're in your terminal and you've typed the git clone command and you've seen these things like it's cloned, what that basically means is a folder has been created wherever you decided to clone it into. The next thing that you need to do is go into the folder that was created. So that can be done right after you type git clone, you type cd, which stands for change directory, and then hosting demo basic, or whatever you decided to name it. If you see this line at the end, that means you're in the right place, the right directory.
what are we?
Yes, so you'd be typing in this command right after you typed in the git clone and then your unique link. It shouldn't return anything, but though your shell should change, saying that you're now in the new directory. Okay, now we're actually going to get it hosted on your local machine only. So we just want to see if the website works. If you're using VS Code, this can be done easily using an extension called live, which one was it? Live server? Which one do I have installed? I'll say local server in your workplace, live preview, the one officially licensed by Microsoft. Any questions about like VS Code and then installing the live preview extension, which will make it easy for you guys to view HTML files? If you've done everything up until this point, you've cloned, you're inside the folder, and then you have installed a live preview extension, you can then use VS Code, go to index.html, wherever you cloned it, right click on it, and then open with live server. The server is starting. Okay, wait, Jolie, there's someone behind you. Someone behind you?
Oh,
Yeah.
No, but I was doing all day and
So you type, you're inside the demo basic folder?
So I'm told.
Yeah, you've already cloned it. Yeah, so you will have to go up here and then open the folder. So I think we've done 3 times.
Yeah, like everyone.
Yeah, full screen.
But yeah, we don't stop it.
Like, yeah, so you can type file and then open folders. Yeah. You have to find out wherever it's has to go, which I think was in users.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can look at your terminal. I think you'll give them.
I don't, I know like.
Or, so you were inside. I think that's just like you're using it. It's an extension on VS Code that allows people to look in. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, nice. You just.
Yeah, I just searched for the name.
Okay, all right.
No, I don't see why it's
Anyone else need help? If you want to see this website on your screen and you don't have it, anyone? Yeah.
Yeah.
R 那个是数字分析，是数字分析，这个我记得哈。直接直接把这个什么去。我上次你不是。2年前。你可能得想一想，是不是？你得想，那个经常哦，变这个东西的话，可能来去变是变对 get remote at origin， 然后 get checkout 就是这个就相当于完全是这一端的 report 对吧？有一个 remote 把它拉下来，设立这个样子，代码就可以拿到网上。你马上上面是比这个属于先把你把边拓到这边。
Every single time I try and listen to something, I hate it.
Yeah, if you just type like kids.
Oh my God. It's such a
Yeah. Yeah, that one is really convoluted, like administration is that's still. Yeah. You would want to. And then type in code and be.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yeah.
How do I just
yeah.
How do
They gave us a great description.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's not okay.
What is the CSS?
It's not an iPad.
It's an auto.
We have it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel that it's shipping. I don't know what's wrong. Never. Wait, why is that actually not
Okay, we're going to move on. So if you got it to work on your local machine, that's good. If you didn't, that's also good, but not as great, because Vercel doesn't care if something doesn't work on your local machine, because it has its own servers on the internet that are dedicated to getting your stuff to work. So even if you weren't able to get things Git cloned on your local machine, as long as you fork the Git repo and there's something under your name, you can create a Vercel account, ask it to deploy it for you onto a unique link on the web. All right. So let's actually get started with that. If you've created a VS or not a VS Code, a Vercel account, I think there's probably like paid plans, but you probably want to select hobby for now. I'm not sure if like what you guys see for the dashboard here might be empty, but you want to be on the dashboard for Vercel. Is anyone on this page? Can anyone tell me what it looks like if like you don't have anything?
It's just deploy your first project. Start with one of our templates or create something.
Perfect. Do you guys have this button here, like add new?
Yes, on top of it.
Sweet. Okay. So step one, prerequisite for this to work is to make sure that you have something forked, a GitHub repo that can be deployed, whether it's on your local machine or on the web. Next step is to create a Vercel account. And then finally, the last step is going to be telling your Vercel to deploy your GitHub repo on the web for you. Okay. All right, let's walk through this step by step because I don't want to like delete my deployments in case any hiccups happen. So we're going to add a new project for whatever website you want to host. If you're working with our demo, that's what you would be working at. All right. Now we're on this page. And the sweet thing is, if you've linked your Vercel to your GitHub account, you should have a list of existing projects under your name that you can start to host. Okay, this is the one that you guys should be seeing, in addition to any other GitHub projects that you guys might have. Can anyone confirm that like they see this whenever they click on new project? Confirm? Yeah.
Hosting demo basic. I think I didn't make it.
Oh, did you create your Vercel account using GitHub, or did you do it like using Google or
Using GitHub.
Oh, let me just take a look.
So,
I guess we created. But this works as well. Like basically just linking two games accounts that will be yeah. Alright, so if you're on this screen and you see hosting demo basic, you can click on the import button next to it and then start configuring whatever things you need in order to get it hosted. So you're on this page, you see hosting demo basic or whatever you decided to name the GitHub repo, you import it, and then it says here you're almost done. There's a couple more things you need to do. All right, so you can configure your project. This is useful if like you're working with a complex one, but since this is the first demo, a lot of the things here can be restored to their defaults. The project name, pretty self-explanatory, it's just what you want the project to be called. Framework preset. If you click on like the dropdown, there's a lot of like front-end application frameworks that you guys could be potentially using in your hackathon to develop your project. Default HTML, CSS, and JavaScript doesn't have its own preset because it's very simple. So it should default to other, and that should be the one you guys are okay with. Root directory that stands for the largest folder that contains all of the projects or files that you guys want Vercel to be able to access. Since inside the GitHub repo, there's only like really one folder, and that's just the root directory, and then there's only 3 files inside of that. You would also still say, okay, the root directory, it can be its default. Another thing, build and output settings. Vercel already has built-in commands in order to get your project to run. For this specific project, because you're working with something very simple, you don't need to specify anything like that Vercel should do differently than the default. So nothing happens here either. And then environment variables, we haven't gone over that yet, but we don't need any of those for this project either. So basically we did nothing except for if you guys want to change the name, and then you guys can press deploy, and then Vercel will start doing its magic. You can see it happen in real time. Let's see. So it builds in 1 second. Oh. And then it should take you to this page. Congratulations, you deployed a new project to Vercel. Who was able to like get to this page? Sweet. Now you guys can continue to your dashboard, which actually like you can play around with it here. There's a lot of things that you guys might not need, but a lot of companies would, like analytics, speed insights, logs for whatever endpoints were accessed at the specific time. But you guys can see they give you 2 different deployment links or URLs. The first one is going to be specific to like the version or commit that you have. And then the second is going to be like the master domain that always takes you to the same place. So if you guys click on it, you guys can access this site right here. And this one is on the web. So any one of you guys could go to this link, hosting-demo-basic-silk.vercel.app, and you guys would get this page. Obviously, because we all clone the same repo, the website looks the exact same, but okay. Does anyone have like a different link? You probably should, because I guess Silk is my unique link.
Mine said Sigma.
Sigma, nice. Does anyone have any other unique words? Jet, nice. I guess it,
Red, RAD.
yeah. This is how, I guess, because you guys forked the demo and it's named the same thing, they had to specify like, you know, every URL is different. Wait, let me see if you guys are telling the truth. Sigma. Ah. Jet. Nice. Okay. Anyone have questions before we move on to the second demo? We just want to make sure this works. Oh, did you steal the default one? Let me check. Let me try accessing that. 1 second. I guess you beat the race. I guess you took the URL before I did. Either that or I already owned this link beforehand, but then I deleted it. Maybe it took a while before Vercel recognized that, like, okay, if someone decides to take this URL, they can claim it. And you were just the first one after they decided it's free for grabs. Any other questions you have? Oh, okay. Okay, now we're going to move on to the second demo. You guys don't have to clone this one because, like I said, Vercel doesn't care if you can run something on your local machine or not. It has its own computers that will do this for you. So let's go back to this slide here. If you want to follow along for the second demo, it's down here. This is the QR you can use. If you're on the slides, you can also just access the GitHub link directly. And then same process of just forking it. You guys don't have to clone anything. If you forked it and it's under your name as a repository, you guys are good to start deploying things onto Vercel. Yeah, do you want the link, or there's a QR code here that takes you directly to the slide?
What about for like your laptop?
What's the best way to send them, like these slides?
Like, what do you need? Sorry.
I have slides right here, and then their laptop needs that.
Like,
I guess
Oh, yeah. There's Discord. You could do the share link and then copy the link into the charts. Yeah. If you really want to. Then
I mean, I can see your.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought you had QR code for the slides. No?
Yeah, this one is it.
Oh, but not to the laptop. I
Yeah.
see.
That's one of the few pain points of using like a Windows instead of a Mac. Your phone isn't linked to your laptop.
So once we send that out, it'll make that side a lot easier, just setting.
Yeah, okay. All right. Let me find. Were you able to get the slides? Okay. This GitHub link is a little bit different. Okay. So the structure of this one is a little bit more complicated. We're going to be hosting both a backend and a front end server, and then we're going to be sending API requests between the two. It's pretty different compared to the first demo, where everything was built inside one file. There was no need to like distinguish, okay, which one is the main directory we're working with, but these two are what we need. You guys make sure you fork this, and then in the meantime, I'm gonna delete the demos that I've already hosted and rebuild the projects. Delete. Settings. Delete. Okay. Both the front end and the back end servers have been deleted on my end. So I'll be going like walking with you guys through the process of getting your front end and your back end hosted. So it doesn't matter which one you guys decide that you want to host first. We can do the back end first, but beware, the back end side is going to look really ugly because it's not like a front end thing that can be understood by the browser. So once again, once you forked it, you've created your Vercel account, you can start by adding a new project. So you would add a new project, same workflow as before. And then there should be only one after you forked it. This is the project where we'll be hosting both a backend and a front-end server from, but because they're inside the same repo, we only select this one. Is everyone at this step? They can see hosting demo React Express. React stands for our front-end framework that we'll be using to deploy the app, and Express stands for the backend framework that we'll be using. There's no need to like understand the intricacies of it yet because you guys might be using different frameworks for your projects as well. All right. So then you guys import this, and then there's a couple interesting steps that we need to do in order to get this to work. So you guys can select the project name. I would personally add like backend to the project name because we want our front end to be using the real hosting demo React Express link. The backend is just going to be like something that our front end calls in order to receive the things. Framework preset, there is nothing for Express, so we're also going to be using other. But for root directory, this is going to be changed. Because inside of our GitHub repo, we have a front end and a backend folder, we only want to pick the files for the backend. So we'll be setting our root directory over to our backend and pressing continue. So this is an important step because Vercel won't be able to understand like
what to do if you just give it the repository here. You'll have to tell it the backend folder. Then I believe these can stay the same. Hopefully, Vercel knows. What should we put here? JS. Yeah. There are special instructions. Let's just make sure we'll do node server.js. This is the command that you would type if you had it on your local machine. But since it's on the web, we need to tell Vercel what exact command we need in order to build the app. So make sure you check override, and then you type in node server.js. This is just the command to get your backend running.
Is there a hyphen between node and server?
No, it's two separate words. Node space server.js. Server.js. And then environment variables, we don't need them for the backend for now. And then let's press deploy. Let's see if Vercel can build this. Yes, yes. All right, deployment completed. Congratulations, you deployed a new project to Vercel. Let me check the endpoint that I wrote. /API/message. Okay, so the backend server is responsible for sending data back and forth between like a database or anything that you don't want directly accessible in front of a front end. So when you continue to dashboard, you're gonna get your unique link. Let me see if mine has an extra word. IOTA, sweet. Your browser doesn't know how to render like something like this. If you guys do type whatever was in your URL /API/message, you guys should get something sent back from the backend server. Is everyone at this step? They can type, let's see, you have your link, you've accessed it, then you can add into the end API/message, and then you get this for the screen. Yeah. So yes, yeah. Let's see. So the first thing that we need to do was set like the root for the backends. On this. Pull down. Okay, go to sleep. Yeah, so there are other nodes on that page. Yeah, no, just other. Oh, we will. Okay, just kind of okay. Then go to object and then try to
So I just created it. It works now.
If you want to use this one or the new one, or okay, that's okay. You can go to GitHub. Do you need the link to this one? Okay, I can go back.
Pretty sure
This is a link for it.
So I just remember, like, I was in
Yeah. You like back in at the end. The root directory to back. And then build an alpha, override the document, and then type node space.
Oh, that's my.
It's just a command. It's for execute specifically. If you're working with other backend frameworks, it's just the code. This is what you're telling yourself to do. If you're working with Express, which is what the code is, would be. Yeah, and then it's deployed. Okay. Yep. Oh, so not yeah, it should just be like starting with the 8, so everything's more. Yeah, and then I think you can remove this.
Yeah.
All right, now you're there. Or the first thing, were you able to get Vercel? Up?
Oh, Vercel?
Yeah. Let's continue with your.
Oh. Oh, good.
Yeah, you don't have to read it. Yes. Yeah, so up here, that type slash API slash. That's just like the unique route that I just. So now I can cover that. So now we're actually. Oh, why am I doing this? Okay. The final step for front end. The final step to get your front end hosted and connect to your back end is the same process. You're going to create a new project, import the same Git repository, but the difference is you'll be using your front end folder this time. So import it. You can name this front end this time. React, create React app, root directory, edit it to front end.
Was it also an issue? Oh.
Yeah.
This is what your configurement should look like. You should have hosting, demo, React Express front end. The framework preset should be set to create React app. The root directory is front end. Nothing you have to change for your build and output settings. And then we didn't get to environment variables, but we do have one that isn't necessary if you don't want to add it, but it will be the thing that actually connects your front end to your back end. This last part right here. Sorry? Yes, a new project using the same GitHub repo, but this time we're going to be using a different root directory for this. This back end, if you guys decide that you want to connect your front end and your back end, it's going to be the same link that was deployed for your back end. It's going to be this thing right here. All of this. Hosting, demo, React Express, backend, IOTA, or whatever unique thing you had. And then you're going to paste that here.
You include the /API.
Yes, you do need the /API at the end. I'm going to keep this page up on here because there are some configuration things that you need to keep. Let me know if you guys need help. But after you press deploy and everything works so far, you should have a working front end that can connect to your backend.